In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Thank you, Mr. President. I value your efforts in leading the deliberations of the Council this month, and I value your support to the issues related to Sudan in the Council. I thank Deputy Prosecutor Ms. Khan for her briefing as she presented the content of the 41st report. Mr. President, I have to outline the cooperation between the Office of the Prosecutor and the Sudan. The situation in Darfur was referred by the Security Council to the ICC according to Resolution 1593 of 2005 and based on the prerogatives of the Council indicated in Article 13b of the Rome Statute. A memorandum of understanding was signed by the Office of the Prosecutor and the Government of Sudan in August 2021, following the December Revolution. The Sudan took steps to accede to the Rome Statute that established the ICC. However, Sudan has not yet ratified the Rome Statute of 2002. Legislative amendments were introduced, according to which the 4 crimes that are under the criminal jurisdiction of this ICC were incorporated in national legislation. This includes the Penal Code of 1991, the Armed Forces Code of 2007, and the Criminal Proceedings Code of 1992. Mr. President, this Memorandum of Understanding was signed taking into account Article 86A of the Rome Statute. This article addresses cooperation with non-state parties to provide the assistance contained in Part 9. To provide the necessary assistance related to investigations conducted by the ICC on Sudanese territories. The Memorandum of Understanding establishes the mechanisms for cooperation. However, including provisions in national legislation related to the nature of this cooperation would be part of a wider legal reform, part of the more complex process of transitional justice. This process has not been completed yet. The Sudan accepted cooperation with the ICC, and the new civilian government will shape this cooperation with the prosecutor, who will be very soon visiting Sudan. As part of this cooperation, the Office of the Prosecutor visited Sudan a number of times and met with high-level officials. He visited refugee camps in Darfur. In August 2022, the prosecutor delivered his briefing to the Security Council from Khartoum. The Memorandum of Understanding reflected the political will to engage with the ICC based on the principle of legal complementarity, which gives priority to national judicial proceedings over the ICC. The ICC is the last resort. The government of the Sudan sought to shape this cooperation, and as a result, the chair of the Transitional Sovereignty Council issued Decision 191 of 2023, which provided for establishing a committee to coordinate the cooperation with the ICC, chaired by a judge of the Supreme Court. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent instructions to our embassy in The Hague to issue entry visas to the team of the prosecutor whenever they need to. This committee prepared responses to most outstanding requests that we've received since 2020, as much as this was possible during the war. And the Office of the Prosecutor of the ICC commended this in writing and included this cooperation in the 39th report. Mr. President, the cooperation with the ICC included responding to a number of requests that the prosecutor has sent us on violations committed in Darfur as far back as 2004. The requests included the situation of the three suspects. We responded to this request with detail, at the previous council meeting on the 27th of January 2025, and we did not receive any additional new requests on this regard in the 40th or the 41st report. This issue has been discussed during the visit of the legal team of the Office of the Prosecutor in Port Sudan. As part of the cooperation between the ICC and the government of Sudan, according to the Memorandum of Understanding and the Agreement of Cooperation, we received a delegation from the ICC in Port Sudan. They fulfilled their task fully. There is constant coordination and cooperation between the ICC and the committee to coordinate this cooperation. This correspondence happens almost daily. A delegation from the Sudan, headed by the Attorney General, and whose members include representatives from different committees and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This delegation visited the ICC in The Hague between the 10th and the 13th of December 2024. And between the 18th and 24th of April 2025, a team from the Office of the Prosecutor visited Port Sudan. A number of witnesses were cross-examined, and the delegation was able to attend a hearing in a trial focused on war crimes committed in Darfur. The hearing took place in Port Sudan. Through these mutual visits, cooperation between the parties is being enhanced, and that facilitates the work of the investigation committees established by the Office of the Prosecutor. All requests that we received have received the attention that they deserved, and we took all the necessary steps. There is continued and constructive cooperation between the ICC and the Sudan concerning the crimes and violations that were committed in Darfur since the 15th of April 2023. The investigation team of the ICC were able to meet with representatives of the Sudanese government and meet with witnesses and victims. The delegation from the ICC were able to meet the Attorney General and the head of the Committee to Investigate Crimes and Violations. They were informed of the trial regarding the killing of the governor of West Darfur, Khamis Abkar, and other violations that targeted the Masalid tribe. These violations amount to a genocide, and the Sultan of the Masalid presented his testimony to the Security Council on the 19th of December 2024. The Committee to Coordinate Cooperation with the ICC is ready to receive any new proposals to enhance cooperation, especially to investigate violations perpetrated by the RSF. When it comes to the legal grounds, the legal basis of cooperation between the government of Sudan and the Office of the Prosecutor, there are no restrictions on communications or movements or investigations carried out by the ICC or any activities carried out by the ICC. Executing the request for cooperation according to Article 99A of the Rome Statute occurs according to procedures set out in national legislation, unless it's prohibited by national legislation. The Sudanese judiciary is playing a role in the hybrid investigation that will be carried out in cooperation with the ICC based on the principle of complementarity and at the right time. Of course, criminal investigations is a very complicated matter. It requires an integrated legal system to ascertain facts, to disclose facts, and to maintain the rights of those accused and the suspects. So that requires a stable legal system, which is not there in light of the transitional circumstances during this ferocious war. Mr. President, the National Committee to investigate crimes and violations of national law and international humanitarian law works based on a very clear methodology. It is cooperating with the ICC, and it relies on investigating violations of national law and international humanitarian law. It focuses on the legal assessment of the different categories of crimes and the assessment of the merits in the cases, and then decides whether the cases should be referred to the court or dismissed. The committee looks into the violations that have been perpetrated since the 15th of April 2023, and the mandate of this committee continues to the end of the war or the cessation of these violations. The jurisdiction of this committee covers all the territory of the Sudan. The committee is accounting for all violations. It's gathering evidence, evidentiary evidence, video footage, and information from reliable sources. It is verifying these information, and it's also relying on reports by national institutions and UN institutions. It's also receiving complaints related to any violations committed that are inconsistent with national law and international humanitarian law. It's investigating these complaints, it is listening to testimonies, and it's completing the procedures without being restrictions by any territorial jurisdiction.
It is also documenting criminal cases on violations in line with Article 11B of the law issued in 2017. The committee also takes field visits to meet victims and witnesses to take stock of the violations and problems. They also do other visits to meet the victims, witnesses, and listen to them all. We would also like to clarify the narrative that was included in the 41st report. Mr. President, through the investigations that the said committee has undertaken so far, and in line with witnesses' accounts and the reports of the specialized security apparatus, it was proven that the rebel militias had intentions that were clear from the pre-planning and the threats that they will ignite war if their political demands were not met, that they would mobilize their forces in different states, especially those centered in Khartoum, months before their war of aggression. They've actually mobilized armed vehicles on the 12th of April 2023. They besieged the Marawi airport to attack it. They have also occupied and demolished the infrastructure of the airport. They have demolished civilian and military airplanes. They've took hostages from inside those airports, and the armed forces called on the RS forces to withdraw. However, they did not respond and continued their aggression. In the morning of the 15th of April 2023, the militia forces have attacked the House of the President of the Presidential Transitional Council, commander of the armed forces, in an attempt to kill him. They have mobilized more than 600 4x4s and a number of armed vehicles. It was proven that those rebel militias have prepared before the attack a number of machineries used to demolish buildings. That was proven in the media statement that the commander of the militia has shared on the 15th of April, where he said that they will detain the Commander General of the Armed Forces or kill him. In line with the acts committed by the rebel militias, the committee believes that this was a violation at the hands of the Rapid Support militia in line with the 2017 code. In line with Article 162 of the Armed Forces Code, it's also a violation of the counter-terrorism law of 2001. What has been undertaken by the rebel militia is a rebellion against the constitutional order. Thus, they are by law a group of rebellious fighters against the state law. And despite the repeated calls from the Commander General and to the heads of those militias to surrender their weapons so that they can get a pardon, they did not respond. Thus, the armed forces had to undertake its constitutional role and to counter them to maintain peace and stability in the country and protect their citizens. This is in line with Article 35 of the constitutional document as well as Article 51 of the UN Charter. Mr. President, the militia of the Rapid Support are launching an all-out destruction war against the state that without the main parameters of a regular army. They lack unity of control and command or even knowledge of the rules of engagement. They are established based on communal basis. The recruitment is based on ethnicity. They have been designated as a terrorist group, financed through illegal matters, through the smuggling, drug and human trafficking, and others. Their source of financing is from well-known regional sponsors, along with other regional countries. They also recruit mercenaries at large scale. They also rely on the forced recruitment of children. On the other hand, the soldiers of the Sudanese armed forces are coming from all stratas of the Sudanese society. They have been trained on IHL. They follow a strict code of conduct. They also apply the principles of precaution and distinction. We've also, through our spokesperson, have issued a number of statements warning citizens from any potential areas that might be turned into a theater of war. Thus, we try to ensure maximum care for the citizens in line with IHL prohibition of subjecting civilian objects to any attacks. We protect the life of civilians from any and their objects from any destruction along with the food, the agriculture, the cattle, the water stations, and others. We also implement Article 3 of the Fourth Geneva Convention and the second protocol annexed to the Geneva Convention to ensure humanitarian treatment of persons who are not participating in such fighting. 3,997 cases were referred to specialized courts. The courts have adjudicated 1,093 criminal cases so far. We have to stress that the Sudanese law has not established special or extraordinary courts for those suspects affiliated to the rebel militias. Instead, they were adjudicated and prosecuted in regular courts in line with just proceedings. Article 52 of the 2019 constitutional document in its 2020 amendment stressed that the suspect is believed to be innocent unless proven guilty, and that no measures, criminal or civilian, will be taken against any suspect until he gets a fair hearing in line with the procedures, and no accusations would be labeled against anyone unless there are evidence to that. We also take all necessary logistical trainings to ensure due process. We welcome any cooperation with the international community for training and capacity building, so long as it's in line with judicial complementarity. In this vein, and on the 14th of March 2024, the National Committee has met with the ICC delegation. We informed them of the decision to establish this committee, their jurisdiction and duties, and all the violations it will look into, especially the violations of the rebel militia in West Darfur, Janina and Zalinji, as well as the Jazeera state. We also informed them of the criminal cases against the rebels, especially when it comes to genocide, like what happened against the Masalit tribe in Janina and what happened in Ardmina and the killing of the ruler Khamis Abkar and others. The committee has responded to the judicial cooperation demand by the ICC Prosecutor against the rebel militia in Darfur, as well as what has occurred later from cross-examining the witnesses in April 2025. On the 11th of December 2024, the ICC delegation made a visit to the headquarters of the National Committee and met with the Attorney General, and we've also made a visit to the headquarters of the court in Lahai, and met the Prosecutor General. In this vein, and on the 20th of April 2025, we have also reached a number of 120,594 cases against individuals and commanders of the rebel militias. The national courts have already adjudicated more than 1,093 cases. However, there are 2,904 still remaining. Mr. President, in line with witnesses' accounts, the rebel militia have contributed gross violations against those abductees in Khartoum, Al Jazeera, and West Kordofan, especially after the rebel militias made an incursion on that state on the 28th of June 2024. They have killed 56 of the abductees and detainees who are alleged to be cooperating with the Sudanese armed forces. The militia also violated international humanitarian law and the international human rights law using armed airplanes and drones. They have targeted directly civilians and civilian objects. They have targeted power stations in Kasla and the Red Sea and the White Nile. They have also targeted Port Sudan Airport, Atbar and Kosti, which led to huge damage in these areas, in addition to the pollution. To conclude, Mr. President, we call upon the Office of the Prosecutor General to designate individuals and elements from outside Sudan in neighboring countries, whether they were in Africa or regional sponsors, because they have been helping and supporting and encouraging for the continuation of this war. They allowed the smuggling of weapons. They provided logistical support, food and drones to those militias. They provide them with support so that they can occupy parts of the Sudanese territory with the help of foreign mercenaries to establish a parallel government. This is a new crime of aggression that must be contained. Those elements must be added to the list of investigation to ensure an end to the impunity, especially that they have been increasing in atrocities seen all over the world. We call upon the international community to provide enough political, logistical, and financial support to the ICC so that it can undertake its mandate and investigate the gross crimes committed in Darfur. The continued impunity does not threaten peace and security in Darfur alone, but undermine transitional justice and national reconciliation in Sudan at large. Thus, Sudan stresses that the continued work of the court is an ethical and legal commitment that must be undertaken to ensure reparation for the victims. We welcome a visit from the prosecutor of the ICC whenever that's possible to ensure an end to impunity and support the sovereign jurisdiction in Sudan in line with our continued cooperation. Thank you, Mr. President, for your patience.
Representative of the Sudan.